Welcome everyone to the story of Scooby-Doo. The mystery machine screeched to a stop. The gang had been driving for hours, following a series of mysterious clues that led them to this very spot.
Row, row! Scooby's voice trembled as he looked around nervously. He could sense something was off.
The Sweet Treats Cupcake Factory loomed before them, its windows dark and dusty. The factory had been closed for months.
Looks creepy. Daphne's voice was barely above a whisper. She clutched her flashlight tightly.
Shaggy agreed, his knees knocking. He had a bad feeling about this place.
Let's get this mystery solved. Fred's voice was filled with determination.
Fred grinned. He always loved a good mystery, and this one promised to be a real challenge.
Time to see what's going on. Velma's voice was steady and calm.
Inside the factory, the air was thick with the smell of vanilla and fear. Shadows danced on the walls, creating an unsettling atmosphere. Cobwebs clung to the ovens, and trays lay scattered on the floor. The scent of freshly baked goods lingered, adding to the mystery.
Jinkies! Looks like the ghostly activity started here. The frosting trail is fresh and the ovens are still warm.
Velma pointed to a trail of frosting leading to a giant oven. Her eyes narrowed as she examined the scene. Suddenly, a cupcake whizzed past Scooby's nose, leaving a trail of pink frosting. The cupcake seemed to have a mind of its own.
Zoinks, did you see that? That cupcake was flying.
Shaggy jumped back, bumping into Scooby. They tumbled to the floor in a heap, their eyes wide with shock. The factory seemed to come alive around them.
Did you see that? The cupcakes are moving on their own.
The gang huddled together, trying to make sense of the bizarre situation. The factory, once a place of joy and delicious treats, had turned into a scene from a nightmare. Fred, always the leader, rubbed his hands together. He had a plan, a brilliant plan, to catch the cupcake chaos maker who had been causing so much trouble. His eyes gleamed with determination as he thought about the trap he was about to set.
Time for a trap. We'll catch this cupcake chaos maker red-handed, or should I say frosting-handed. Fred's voice was filled with excitement as he explained the plan to the rest of the gang.
He pulled out a net, ropes, and a giant mixing bowl. These were not just random items. Each one had a specific purpose in the grand scheme of the trap. Scooby and Shaggy exchanged nervous glances. They had been through many adventures, but the thought of facing the cupcake chaos maker made them uneasy. While Fred worked, Scooby's nose twitched. He could smell something sweet in the air, something that made his mouth water. He sniffed the air, then his eyes widened. The scent was coming from the direction of the trap. Could it be that the cupcake chaos maker was already nearby?
Roo-row, Raggy! Smell that? Scooby's voice trembled with a mix of fear and excitement. They had to be ready for anything.
Scooby and Shaggy, following their noses, stumbled upon a secret room. Inside, a mountain of chocolate chips lay piled high.
Jackpot!
Shaggy exclaimed, grabbing a handful. Scooby, unable to resist, dived headfirst into the pile. They made funny faces as they devoured the chocolate. Suddenly, a shadowy figure leaped from the darkness, grabbing Shaggy.
Gotcha!
Scooby, his head buried in chocolate, didn't notice a thing.
Scooby-Doo, help!
Shaggy cried out. In their panic, they slipped on the chocolate and fell.
Like, prepare to face the wrath of the chocolate monster.
The shadowy figure, covered in melted chocolate and sprinkles, advanced menacingly towards Shaggy.
Zoinks!
Shaggy trembled, his eyes squeezed shut as the monster loomed closer.
Rory Raggy!
Just then, Scooby emerged from the chocolate chips, a goofy grin on his face. He bumped into the chocolate monster, sending it tumbling into Fred's trap. The net sprung, capturing the monster in a tangle of ropes and a shower of sprinkles. The gang celebrated their victory, high-fiving each other.
And the culprit is Mr. Muffinman.
The factory owner, his face smeared with chocolate, looked sheepish.
I confess. My cupcake launching machine went haywire and I panicked. I dressed up as the chocolate monster to scare away competitors and keep my secret recipe safe. The gang looked shocked, but the detective nodded knowingly. Mr. Muffinman had good intentions, but his methods were questionable. In the end, the gang forgave him, and the factory owner was relieved.
Mr. Muffinman, honesty is always the best policy. And besides, a good cupcake recipe should be shared, not feared.
Mr. Muffinman, realizing the error of his ways, nodded sadly.
You're right. From now on, I'll focus on making the best cupcakes, not scaring away the competition.
Remember, Mr. Muffinman, it's not just about the cupcakes. It's about the joy and love you put into them.
With a newfound sense of purpose, Mr. Muffinman smiled.
Thank you, Velma. I'll make sure every cupcake is filled with happiness. That's the spirit, Mr. Muffinman. How about all the cupcakes you can eat?
Cupcakes?
Scooby's ears perked up, his tail wagging excitedly.
Like that's even better than a mountain of chocolate chips.
And with that, Scooby and Shaggy dug into the delicious cupcakes, their worries forgotten. They high-fived and laughed, savoring every bite. The duo danced around, their faces lit up with joy. With empty plates and full bellies, they patted their stomachs in satisfaction. Scooby and Shaggy gave a thumbs up, their grins as wide as ever. As the sun rose, the Mystery Machine pulled away from Sweet Treat's Cupcake Factory. Inside, Scooby and Shaggy, their bellies full of cupcakes, snored contentedly.
Another mystery solved.
Fred, gripping the steering wheel, grinned.
And just another reminder that teamwork and a little bit of courage can solve any mystery.
And with Scooby and Shaggy's happy snores filling the air, the Mystery Machine rolled on, ready for their next adventure. The gang chatted excitedly about their next adventure as the Mystery Machine drove through winding roads and new landscapes. Gap 2S. But just as the Mystery Machine rounded the corner, Velma's eyes widened as she spotted an old tattered book wedged under her seat. "Guys, look what I found!" she exclaimed. Fred pulled over, and the gang gathered around as Velma dusted off the cover. "It's an ancient cookbook," she continued, "and it looks like it belonged to the original owner of the Sweet Treats Cupcake Factory." Gap 3S. Daphne flipped through the yellowed pages, stopping at a particularly eerie-looking recipe. "The Haunted Cupcake," she read aloud, her voice tinged with curiosity and a hint of fear. "Legend says that whoever bakes these cupcakes will unlock a ghostly secret." Gap 3S. Shaggy and Scooby exchanged nervous glances, but curiosity got the better of them. "Like maybe we should give it a try," Shaggy suggested, his voice trembling. "Right, Scoob." Gap 2S. Scooby gulped but nodded. "Rhea, Haunted Cupcakes," he agreed, trying to sound brave. Gap 3S. With a new mystery on their hands, the gang's excitement grew. Fred revved up the Mystery Machine, and with the ancient book in hand, they set off toward the next adventure. "Looks like our work here isn't done yet," Fred said, determination in his voice. Gap 3S. As the Mystery Machine sped down the road, the gang couldn't help but wonder what ghostly secrets awaited them in the pages of the Haunted Cupcake recipe. One thing was certain: their adventure was far from over. As the gang arrived back at the Sweet Treats Cupcake Factory, the air was thick with anticipation. Velma carefully laid the ancient cookbook on a table, and they all gathered around. "Let's dig into this haunted cupcake recipe," she announced, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. Gap 3S. The gang followed the recipe meticulously, mixing ingredients and baking with precision. As the oven timer dinged, an eerie mist filled the room. Suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared, hovering above the cupcakes. Shaggy and Scooby yelped in fear, but Velma stood her ground. Gap 3S. "Wait a minute," Velma said, adjusting her glasses. "This ghost looks familiar." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a photograph they had found earlier of the factory's original owner, Mrs. Sweetley. The resemblance was uncanny. Gap 3S. Mrs. Sweetley was a master baker, Velma explained. She infused her cupcakes with her spirit, hoping to pass on her secrets to those worthy of continuing her legacy. The ghostly figure nodded, a serene smile spreading across its face before dissipating into the mist. Gap 3S. Daphne picked up the cookbook, now glowing faintly. "It looks like we've unlocked the true secret of the factory," she said, her voice filled with awe. Mrs. Sweetley wasn't haunting the factory out of malice. She wanted to ensure her recipes were in good hands. Gap 3S. Fred nodded, a look of understanding dawning on his face. "And by solving this mystery, we've shown that we respect her legacy," he said. "The factory can now continue to bring joy to people, just as Mrs. Sweetley intended." Gap 3S. As the gang shared a relieved smile, Scooby snatched a cupcake from the tray. "Ruby Roo!" he cheered, savoring the sweet treat. The gang laughed, the tension of the mystery melting away. Gap 3S. With the factory's ghostly secret uncovered and the spirit of Mrs. Sweetley at peace, the Mystery Inc. team hopped back into the Mystery Machine, ready for their next adventure. "On to the next mystery," Fred declared as they drove off into the sunset. Gap 3S. And so, the legend of the Haunted Cupcake recipe became a cherished part of Sweet Treats Cupcake Factory's history, a testament to the enduring spirit of Mrs. Sweetley and the bravery of Mystery Inc. Gap 3S. "Scooby-Doo-Be-Doo," Scooby cheered, his voice echoing joyfully as the Mystery Machine disappeared down the road. Gap 3S. The end. or is it just the beginning of another sweet adventure? Just as the gang thought they had solved the mystery, a slow clap echoed through the factory. They turned around to see a shadowy figure stepping into the dim light. The air grew tense as the figure revealed himself. It was Mr. Muffinman, the factory's manager. Gap 3S. "Well done, Mystery Inc., Mr. Muffinman said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But you've only uncovered part of the mystery." Gap 3S. Fred, always ready for a challenge, stepped forward. "What do you mean, Mr. Muffinman? We unmasked the ghost and discovered Mrs. Sweetley's true intentions." Gap 3S. Mr. Muffinman smirked. "Yes, but you see, I was the one who orchestrated the ghostly appearances. I knew the legend of Mrs. Sweetley and used it to my advantage." Gap 3S. Daphne gasped. "Why would you do that? What could you possibly gain from haunting your own factory?" Gap 3S. With a sinister grin, Mr. Muffinman revealed his plan. "By creating fear and mystery, I drove up interest in the factory. People love a good ghost story and our sales skyrocketed, but I never expected you meddling kids to dig so deep." Gap 3S. Velma, ever the sleuth, pieced it together. "So you used Mrs. Sweetley's legacy to manipulate people and boost your profits. That's despicable." Gap 3S. Scooby, clutching his cupcake, looked horrified. "Ruro Raggy!" Gap 3S. Fred stepped forward, determined. "Your plan may have worked for a while, but the truth always comes out. And now everyone will know the real story." Gap 3S. Mr. Muffinman's confident demeanor faltered. "What are you going to do?" Gap 3S. Fred raised an eyebrow. "We're going to make sure Mrs. Sweetley's legacy is honored the right way. No more tricks, no more deceit." Gap 3S. With that, the gang turned and began to leave, but not before Velma handed Mr. Muffinman the glowing cookbook. "This belongs to Mrs. Sweetley. Make sure it's used to bring joy, not fear." Gap 3S. As they exited the factory, the tension lifted, and the gang felt a sense of accomplishment. Another mystery solved, and a legacy preserved. Gap 3S. "Scooby-Doo-Be-Doo!" Scooby cheered, his voice filled with pride and relief as they drove off into the sunset, ready for their next adventure. Gap 3S. The end. Or is it just the beginning of another sweet adventure? Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.